Hey guys, so today we're going to be going over the 5 killers of D2C apparel brands. All right. So, one of the things that why this is so important is because these are the main reasons why your D2C apparel brand isn't scaling. So, I'm going to walk you through some root causes, some solutions, and these are some of the questions you should be asking yourself. And I'm going to be also referring back to our graduated scaling method. This is the visual roadmap here. So I'm going to be diving into different parts of this roadmap as I go through these different sections. So the first one is low conversion rate. Generally you want to aim for 2% or higher conversion rate. The perfect scenarios if you have over 150 average order value and a 2% conversion rate, which gives you what we call a website value or website score of 300 plus. And that's an ideal scenario. Now, if you're not there, if you've got a lower conversion rate than 2%, here are some of the reasons why that might be happening. What we see most often is number one, poor product market fit. So this tends to be an issue for smaller brands. The larger brands generally have figured this out, but you should be asking yourself, like, how are you unique from the competition? And do others think the product is worth what you want them to pay for it? Your pricing could be too high, or maybe there's no unique features and benefits, to your product. Apparel and footwear is, very competitive space, very competitive niche. So, you want to be looking at things like form, function, style. And so these are the things you got to be thinking about. Perceived value, right? What's your brand position? What's your social proof? What's your customer experience like? Perceived value is essentially, based on your style, exclusivity, price, quality, product features, and function. Those things all make up your perceived value. So, you might be selling this for $120 for a pair of shoes, but maybe the perceived value based on all of those inputs, maybe people feel like, oh, this is underpriced. I should be paying 150 for this, right? So how does your pricing match up with all of the things that you're offering in your product? And as a part of this is also your messaging pillars. Like, how are you communicating that value to your customers? Social proof is, social media, it's reviews, it's your content feed, your social feed, Instagram, TikTok, all these things. This all feeds into your social proof, but it's also things like, reviews on your website, product reviews on your website, user generated content, as well as the social feed. And the customer experience is also a big part of this, the whole value. And so, you got to be thinking about, like, what's our availability like? If everything is half of your stuff is out of stock, of course you're going to have a low conversion rate, right? You got to have product variety. Everybody has different tastes, different colors, sizes, those sorts of things. So lots of different SKU variants, and that's going to help bring up your conversion rate. If you're selling just one product and it's not going to work for everybody, then that could be your reason for having a low conversion rate. It could be very simple, right? Lots of product shots, lifestyle photography, and your customer service is critical when it comes to the overall experience and the value of your brand. So those are things that could really be impacting your conversion rate. So lack of social proof, right? How do we get some proof that others are also loving the product, which is going to make me feel more comfortable making a purchase? Your customer experience. People are willing to pay more for great experience. And, are you doing the bare minimum, or are you going the extra mile with that experience? Are you doing handwritten notes? Are you doing anything to kind of elevate that experience? Think of, the difference between going into like an Apple store and a gas station, right? Very different experience. And think about your website. Are you giving them that, high-end experience, that high quality experience, or are you giving them the gas station bathroom experience, right? Number two, so this can be a major killer of D2C sales. D2C brands is unpredictable sales. So this is when your sales are going up and down, up and down. It's inconsistent, and usually this is just a lack of marketing systems, a lack of understanding how discounting and promotions work. This is where you often see a lot of these brands that don't have these systems in place are just discounting all the time. They're trying to, because they can't get the rhythms figured out. They've got too much inventory, and then they don't have enough inventory. and they have, so they're trying to, like, they've got everything on sale, on discount, because they haven't figured out their product market fit. They can't convince people to buy it, so they have to put it on sale all the time, right? So these are markers of just not having your marketing systems in place. So those are things like your analytics, your targets, your marketing plan. So as a part of that, for analytics, we talk about things like surveys, customer service, post-purchase surveys that happen after checkout, channel attribution, conversion tracking, and monthly reporting. So, are you using like reporting tools that are giving you real-time feedback on what's working, and what campaigns and channels are profitable? Have you set your targets for things like your net sales, your MER, which is your marketing efficiency ratio, your AROAS, which is essentially the ROAS of your cold audiences, because this is what matters most, is your prospecting cold audiences. Those are your new customers, right? If you're just catering to your warm audiences, you're not going to grow. You're just going to basically bleed those audiences until there's nothing left. So you got to set targets for all these things. Make sure you're looking at industry benchmarks, right? So there are industry benchmarks for all of these things, and make sure that you know what those are. So if you're underperforming, it'll be clear, because if you're not hitting benchmark, then that's something you need to be improving on. And then the marketing plan is more comprehensive, in terms of the seasonal promo calendar, the media plan, the content brand guidelines. Like, these are all things that you need to think about and have planned out to have consistency and have that cadence of your execution. So if things are inconsistent, your sales are up and down like this, very hard to plan around that operationally. And so this, can be a huge killer for brands. They buy too much inventory and they can't sell it all. Another one is low return on ad spend. So, if, some brands are trying to grow and they're putting way too much money into their campaigns, and it's not profitable. So, some companies do have a huge cash flow where they can just, they've got a lot of capital. They can just dump that into trying to gain market share. But most brands, the majority of brands, are not in that position. So it's important that you have a decent return on your ad spend. Otherwise, you can't scale through your campaigns, and it's going to be all organic growth, which is fine, but it's also going to be slower that way, right? And the three most common ways you can impact your ROAS are landing page, targeting, and creative. So if your ROAS is low, these are likely the things you need to be looking at. Now, assuming you have your product market fit figured out, because that, obviously, the product is like the biggest factor, but assuming you've got your product market fit figured out, you're trying to figure out how to raise your ROAS. You got to look at your landing page, you got to look at your targeting, and you got to look at your creative. Obviously, the product market fit is going to impact all of these things, right? And then your returning customer percentage. So if you are a smaller brand and you're growing, you're going to have a much lower returning customer percentage. And if you're well established, you're going to have a much bigger returning customer percentage. That's only natural, but we try to aim for 30 to 40%. And if you're not falling in this range, then you're likely going to have some sort of profitability issue. If you're, because returning customers are so much cheaper to acquire. Let's say you have a, like a 10% returning customer rate. Well, then that means you're spending a lot more money to acquire those customers. And that's going to take a lot more of your cash flow, a lot more of your profit, right? And then you're going to have like a really high return on your ad spend just to be able to scale that. And if also, if you've got like a 60% returning customer percentage, that's also concerning. It means we're probably underspending when it comes to growing our prospecting and our new customers. And then that's going to fizzle out faster, right? Because people are only going to purchase so many times, and you're going to just bleed those lists, and your revenue is going to be declining. So got to watch out for those things. 30 to 40% is generally where we see most brands having the highest profitability. And some of the root causes might be poor customer service, poor product quality, no longevity of the product. Maybe, it's falling apart after a few washes or wears. Not sending enough direct communications. So like not sending enough volume of emails. And maybe your email list is just, too small, right? We want to make sure that we're growing our email lists, but if you've only got a couple thousand people on your email list, it's going to be very hard to achieve, a high percentage of returning customers unless you have, unless you're just not spending a lot in terms of your growth. So you got to make sure you're constantly nurturing, growing that email list, making sure we're running our loyalty programs and getting, like people into our VIP list for special launches and things. So, and then number 5, is high MER. So we've seen a few brands that have like over 50% MER. That is a really tough position to sustain, because that means that more than 50% of your net revenue is going to your media and your marketing costs. Very, very hard to sustain that. We aim for 10 to 20%. And where we see really high MER, usually it's the cause of, scaling by force. This is like, they haven't figured out the product market fit. They haven't figured out the marketing systems. They haven't, they're not hitting their KPI benchmarks, and they're just trying to force the growth to happen. And so what you need to do in those situations is you got to scale back. You have to just pause and say, okay, something's not working here. We need to look at our benchmarks for KPIs. We need to look at our marketing systems. We need to get these things dialed in. Let's reduce our spend so we can stop our burn. And then let's get these things figured out, and then we'll start to scale again. But we got to make sure we're scaling at the right time and we're not forcing that scale, right? So quick fixes to this would be like scale back your media budget immediately, cut it by 30, 40, 50%, and then see that will naturally just increase your ROAS a little bit. It should in most cases. And then, improving your audience targeting and improving your offer. Those are usually the fastest ways to, improve your ROAS and get more traction. So, there's obviously a lot more, different tactics and things that can be deployed, but generally, like, these are the quickest things you can do to turn that around. You really want to try and get that 10 to 20% MER. And if your MER is lower than 10%, you're probably not spending enough on your marketing. If you are in aggressive growth mode, maybe you want to go up to 25% MER, right? So these are all the things you should be looking at. All of this is broken down in our GSM model, and there is another video on YouTube going through the whole model for you guys in more depth. But I know we didn't cover too much of the new customer acquisition, and we did talk about customer retention, but the scaling profitably, there's lots of different tactics and tricks we can do to scale our ROAS and keep our MER low. So I hope this was helpful for you guys. Leave a comment, and I'll see you guys next time.